All right, everybody, welcome to the Your Healthy Self podcast brought to you by Anodyne Pain and Wellness Solutions. And I'm your host here, Regan Archibald. And today we're going to be talking about some very interesting cardiovascular things, how arteries get plugged, why heart disease is so rampant in our society. And today you've just got me. So it's just going to be kind of a cozy little podcast today. And so if you have questions about anything cardiovascular related, brain related, we're going to cover those. And I'm looking at what we've shared with you in our hacks. And these hacks are our health accelerator challenges. And so we put these hacks on as a way to help you move the needle, just that 1% per day. If you just focus on your health for just a little bit every day, it goes so far. And so we put these challenges together as a way for you to get connected with a greater community. And we've got some of the most amazing people in our hack community. We've got a Signal chat group where we're constantly sharing recipes and getting to know each other that way. And then we also even host it live in St. George. So many of you have been there in St. George when we've been hosting it live and learning from each other. And so what I want to share with you today is I'm just going to go back through. We're on what I believe is one of the most important hacks or health accelerator challenges that we could have, which is our 30-day heart and brain health reset. So it's 30 days to really start reprogramming your heart, reprogramming your brain. And if that's something that you are not interested in, or you have no desire to get your heart and brain improved, then this is probably not something that will interest you. But I know for those of you in our community, which I appreciate so much, these things can really be transformative. And I believe that right now, more than ever, we've got an opportunity to really step up what we're doing from a health perspective with our heart and with our brain. And so what I'm going to do is encourage each one of you. We have what's called the golden ticket. Now, the golden ticket to be part of our health accelerator community, it's a $500 investment, and that gets you live access to all of our group webinars every Wednesday from 4:30 to 5:30 Mountain Time. But what that investment also gets you is a recorded version where you can go back to any of our previous our health accelerator challenges, like our 100-day fat burning challenge, or we did our 21-day energy reset. We had a 7-day push-up challenge, and so many of our participants were able to almost double the amount of push-ups they did. We've also got our thyroid hormone and immune reset, that 30-day challenge there. We have our pain and movement accelerator course, which was very popular, and you can go back and watch that. And then now we're on to the heart and brain reset. And so we'll be doing these challenges every single week. Every month we change it up. It becomes a new theme. It becomes a new opportunity for you to learn more about yourself. And what I've learned about the human brain is we love novelty and we love challenge. And so if you can make health a little more engaging and have that novelty and challenge at the same time, it's going to be one of the biggest accelerators of your life. And so that's the golden ticket. If you go to our website, you can go to AccuEastWest.com. You can find the golden ticket access, and can also post it in the show notes for you. So make sure you get signed up if you're not signed up. We'd love to have you a part of our community. It's been a very rewarding experience to see the people's transformation. So let's jump in. I'm going to be talking about the hacks today, and we'll be publishing some of these hacks on our podcast too. So you can always go back and listen to them and have them right here at your fingertips. So as you guys have questions as we go through some of these today, feel free to let me know. And so number one, I'm going to give you guys an overview. So we're going to spend for the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about the first week's hack. And yes, we're focused on cardiovascular health right now. And so this cardiovascular health will be one of the most critical things you can do to help build your brain health as well. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Regan Archibald. I'm the founder of East West Health, which is now called Anodyne Pain and Wellness Solutions. And what Anodyne means is to to bring relief or to bring relief of pain in an innocuous way. And so for those of you who are like, why did you change your name, Regan? Well, one of the big reasons I did this is because I had the opportunity a couple years ago to link up with a group of about a dozen different healthcare entrepreneurs who have a big passion and a big purpose to transform healthcare in America. We saw that the crisis is getting out of control. Healthcare costs have skyrocketed. People are getting sicker. We're getting more overweight, more depressed, more in pain. 11% of Americans walk around with some kind of chronic pain. And so we said we need to address this challenge, but we can't do it isolated in our own little geography. We need to go out into the world. And so I'm a founding member of Anodyne clinics across the United States. We're now part of 5 Anodyne clinics in Utah, and then one in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I happen to be today, in gorgeous state of New Mexico. And really appreciate you guys here, all your support. I got to meet a lot of the patients yesterday in the clinic, and it was so fun to see just the energy and just the appreciation that you guys bring. And then I'm also the founder and creator of Go Wellness, which is a training and mentoring program for physicians and healthcare entrepreneurs. I've written 7 books. I'm a prolific speaker, and I believe that collaborative medicine needs to be mainstream medicine. I believe that each one of you deserve to have a healthcare team taking you through and coaching you on your health journey, because what we've learned in the information era is that just by having more information, if everyone had more, if information worked, I heard this quote the other day, I think it was by Tim Ferriss, but he said, if information is all we needed, everybody would be billionaires and have 6-packs. And so what we've learned is, especially in health, is sometimes the information which becomes misinformation. We think we need one thing and we go down that path. Some of those paths that we've taken can be devastating. And so what we're doing in this Your Healthy Self podcast, we are turning the tides and actually giving you some actionable items that will direct you in the right path so that you can have the best health of your life, you can feel better, serve deeper. And so that's my mission. Every day I wake up and I remind myself of my mission, which is to transform health. And so I believe if I could transform health in people's lives, then they can be a better father, better mother, better leaders. They can be a better spouse. They can be just a better human overall if we have great health. So that's my purpose. I've helped hundreds of clinics. I've taught, mentored thousands of acupuncturists and helping them create this ability to really help people in a long-term permanent way. And it's been just a real gift. I've been in the field for since 2004. So this is my 17th year, officially. And I've been really blessed and really appreciate each one of you for being part of this journey with me, and this new journey that we started last year with the Hacks, with Ann Marked as our lead project manager and innovator. She's just been awesome in this. We've had my brother Kate Archibald, he stepped in, and then many of the people at Anodyne Pain and Wellness. So just want to thank you guys as well, and for everyone being part of this. So let's jump into today's insights, and feel free. It's okay to ask questions, and I will answer those as we go. But let's jump in. So big thing we're going to talk about today. We're going to do rapid fire for the next about 22 minutes. We're going to talk about improving the heart and brain, preventing heart disease and Alzheimer's, how to regain your cardio fitness. And this might come as a surprise to many of you. And then we'll talk about some of the new therapies to transform your brain and heart coherence. And so this morning in the hotel gym, I met a gentleman. Kate and I were working out, and I had this, I had my app set up. And so we were doing these core workout and then a leg and glute workout. And I noticed a gentleman that was there, and he was just really going hard. He must be, in his mid 50s. And so I said, man, you're crushing it in there today. We, after the workout was over. And he said, thanks. I am recovering. It's been 4 months since I had my surgery. And I said, oh, what kind of surgery did you have? And And he said, well, I had a spinal brain stimulator implanted. And I said, what, did you have Parkinson's? Is that what it was for? He's like, yeah, I used to shake like this and I was just all over the place. And I was so excited to meet him because I said, I've only read about that technology. And I'm so happy to hear that it worked out so well for you. And he explained how the procedure went, which he said is crazy because they take off the top of his brain. They basically cut off the cap and then they insert a probe into the brain and then they wake him up out of the sedation. And then they can see if the tremors start. And then they want to make sure they have the probe in the right area before they cap it back off, put the cap back on. And so they woke him up, he said, which is kind of weird. And then, they put the probe in the right place to stop the shaking, the tremors. And they put the cap back on, and then they insert, sedate him again. They insert wiring down to a pacemaker. And then once that pacemaker is in, they give him time to heal, to recover from the scars. So nothing's happening yet. And then they charge it up. So they start it up, a few weeks later, once his body's healed from the surgery. And once they start it up, he said, it's weird. You feel this kind of electrical surge, but then his tremors just stopped. And he said, it's been amazing. And so I said, that is, I love that. I mean, we've done a lot of work with Parkinson's patients using some of the regenerative medicine therapies. The stem cells have been incredible. We've seen incredible things with peptides. But for those of you who have not actually, if you're looking for other solutions, that could be a big one. And so I love medicine. I love seeing the breakthroughs. But it was really encouraging to see this gentleman just feeling so on purpose and so alive. You could tell he was literally charged up in a lot of different ways. And so as we talk about this brain and heart coherence, this morning I was like, oh man, that's I've got to share that with you amazing people, because you may know of somebody who's got Parkinson's or who needs some of these more advanced therapies, but something that's without drugs. Yes, it's a surgery, but some of the surgeries, they are absolutely necessary. I'm not anti-surgery by any means, but I believe that there's so many things that we can do that don't require drugs or surgery. And so at least that one, he's not on all the medication he was that had a bunch of side effects. He said he got to the place where he couldn't even perform his work. He's spent a business owner and he thought about leaving and getting out of it, but he loves his work. So he's got his life back. And that's what we're about here. So big promise today is let's get some clarity around your heart and brain. So number one, heart disease is still the number one killer. If we look at the comorbidities with COVID, you can always couple it in there and you'll see that there's heart disease or diabetes or some of these cardiovascular conditions. And so one of the things that happens when our risk goes up is our arteries start to get plugged up. And so we're going to talk about why they get plugged up, because these LDL particles, so many of you have had your labs read and you're on statins, or you've been told, hey, you need to be on statins in order to get your cholesterol down. And for those of you who have kind of scratched your head and say, well, why is my cholesterol high in the first place? Well, we're going to talk about that today, because the cholesterol that can be the most damaging is, we say LDL is the bad cholesterol. Well, as a matter of fact, it's the oxidized LDL that can be the most inflammatory causing. LDL cholesterol in and of itself is actually really positive for us, because that's partially how we carry nutrients into the brain. So for those of you who have been on statins and you say, man, I take my Lipitor and my brain just turns off. Well, it might be because your cholesterol is actually too low. And I've seen lots of you, and we've looked at your labs and we've said, man, we really need to work with your doctor on this and get your cholesterol levels higher. And, we stopped eating fats, and we had the whole saturated fat movement with, Dwight Eisenhower when he was president. He had a massive heart attack. And the way that he went about to solve the problem, which I think is brilliant, is he sent his leading researchers out throughout the world to learn about heart disease. And one of his researchers, Ansel Keys, came up with the solution. He said, oh, the reason why people are having more heart attacks in the United States, because they were going up at a very accelerated rate in the 50s. He said the reason why is because of saturated fat. And then what he realized, he said, okay, well, let's get rid of my saturated fat. So they put him on, a diet of no eggs. He had dry toast. He could have butter on his toast once a week. They got rid of all saturated fat, and that fat-free movement, what it did is it ended up where we subsidized the corn and some of the commodities crops, the grains like the wheat, canola, and we started shifting everything over to these plant-based oils, and without knowing that some of those polyunsaturated fats actually increase our oxidized LDL. And that's led to a lot of the inflammation in the arteries. We started eating more sugar, and that inflammatory process has actually been really brutal for our heart health. And what we're going to talk about is some of the studies where they've actually been able to see how these all correlate, and where they've looked at people who eat a diet that's got saturated fat. And they've actually found that saturated fat is good for your cholesterol and actually really healing for the body, these healthy saturated fats. And so maybe that's not the cause. And I'll share with you some of those studies as we go. But cardiovascular disease, I think each one of us know of somebody who's had cardiovascular disease. And so let's talk about mitigating the risk. Well, number one, it's the sugar consumption. So here's one of the studies. And this study was published January 13th in 2016. And the title of the study is Sugar Consumption Plays Greater Role in Heart Disease Than Saturated Fat. So for those of you who are still on the saturated fat bandwagon, well, hopefully this study will help you take a step back and maybe start to question what we've been taught. Because that's the beautiful thing about science is, science is never stagnant. I mean, if you look at a true scientific method, like we're always observing, and you never reach that pinnacle of, yes, now we know for definitively, and especially when it comes to health, is we're always having new discoveries. And I can tell you the amount of discoveries I've had in 17 years of being in the field. I am 10 times more open-minded now than I was when I began my journey. Or maybe 100 times or 1,000 times. And I hope I'll be the same 10 years from now. There's nothing worse than when I meet with doctors and they've already got it figured out. And that's probably a doctor you want to avoid, right? It's like when somebody knows it all, you're like, well, there's got to be something you don't know. And what we don't know is sometimes the most dangerous. And so here's the study. It says atherosclerotic coronary heart disease, or CHD, is responsible for 1 in every 6 deaths in the United States, and leading cause of death in the developed world. And the primary focus to limit the coronary heart disease in our country has been, and the prevention of this has been, from a dietary perspective, on eliminating saturated fats. And of course, this came from Ansel Keys in the 1950s, and then it was embraced by the American Heart Association and the US federal government in the 60s and 70s. Even though there was another researcher out of Britain, and his name was John Yudkin, and he argued it's sugar intake. So what is it? Is it saturated fat or is it sugar? And so what they did, this was at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, they looked at 60 years of data and they compared the two opposing philosophies. Is it sugar? Is it saturated fat, is what they asked. And what they found is that the saturated fatty acids, or SFAs, these saturated fatty acids, they actually had measurable benefits for lipid profiles and benefits to diminishing the CHD, or coronary heart disease, risk. So the fatty acids, they found that it increased the high density lipoprotein cholesterol. Sometimes we call that the good cholesterol, lowered some of the oxidative LDL particles, and it was associated with a reduced risk in heart disease. So that's pretty phenomenal. And what they did in this study is they looked over 60 years of data comparing the two opposing philosophies on saturated fat. So it took us 60 years to figure this out. And I can tell you, I still have the patients who come in and they say, this is the diet my cardiologist has me on. And it's like no saturated fats whatsoever. And, it's great because usually they'll have more vegetable-based diets, and those things are really positive for the heart and for the gut. We need to eat more vegetables in our country. I'm absolutely for that. But there's nothing about the benefits of the fatty acids. And I can tell you, when you start eating these fatty acids, and you get the right amounts of fat in your diet, the good healthy fats, you'll notice that your brain works better, your heart works better, you recover more from your workouts. So it's a really positive thing. And so what they found in this 60-year study, remember that's a long time, 60 years to look at all those studies. That's phenomenal. And so they found that when saturated fats were removed from a person's diet, inevitably they would all move towards more refined carbohydrates. And as you and I know, our brains are hardwired for three things. Our brains are hardwired for fat, they're hardwired for sugar, and they're hardwired for salt. Those are, if you see those mountain goats, it's amazing. They find the salt blocks in the mountain and they will literally scale a cliff so they can go lick the salt block. I mean, we had herds of cattle. I grew up on a cattle ranch in Idaho, and our cattle, we'd always put the salt blocks out, because salt's actually a really important part of our diet, and obviously for hydration and kidney function and getting those minerals. And we love that stuff. And then, but the sugar is that instant source of energy. And our bodies can't live, obviously without glucose, but it's the easiest way to get a quick rush. And so it's the most addictive of the sugar, fat, and salt. Sugar can be deadly, and we should have a label on some of the candy that's like, very habit forming, just like we have on the cigarettes or alcohol. We should have warnings on some of these crazy sugar treats and processed foods that our kids have access to at school, which really infuriates me. Kids should not have access to that. Our brains are still forming. I mean, it's like such a critical time for brain health. And then they're still trying to figure out who they are. Their hormones are changing. And then you put a bunch of garbage in their body. And now you're going to see, the ADD, ADHD, and I won't get on this. I won't go on too long of a tangent on this. We could talk for the rest of the time about the behavioral issues that come with sugar. But many of like you see a kid and, a 4-year-old kid who gets candy, and then they're happy for about 30 minutes. And then what happens? Yeah, they go, they're exploded. Their behavior, I can't handle my kid. Their behavior is so rough. It's like, well, have you looked at what you're putting into their body? Because that's feeding their brain. And then what you feed your brain is exhibited through behavior in many cases. So what they found in this, sorry, I know we're talking about heart disease, but we're also talking about how heart and brain are connected. And we'll get into that a little more in about 20 minutes. So what they found is consuming a diet that's high in sugar for just a few weeks has been shown to cause numerous abnormalities in patients with coronary heart disease, such as high total cholesterol, high triglycerides, LDL, oxidized LDL, uric acid, insulin resistance, and abnormal glucose tolerance, low HDL, and even altered platelet function. So the platelets, this is where the COVID-19 viral strain, it loves to hitch a ride. And then once it starts to proliferate, it's snatching those platelets and suffocating them. That's what the spike proteins can do. So very interesting. So if you look at adding fructose, the high fructose corn syrup, this is one of those key consumption, the key thing that you do not want to consume, because that leads to leptin resistance, which makes you want more of that substance. And so it's in sodas. High fructose corn syrup now is, we're starting to realize how dangerous it is. But look at everything you're eating, look at labels, and just absolutely avoid high fructose corn syrup. Even if you're starving, like that's one of the worst things you can put in your body. And that's going to cause the plaque buildup in your arteries and keep you from losing weight. So that's a big one. All right, clogged arteries. So here's another study. This was in the British Medical Journal. They said, and once again, if you need any more evidence, we're providing it here. They said saturated fat does not clog arteries. Coronary heart disease is a chronic inflammatory condition, the risk of which can be effectively reduced from healthy lifestyle interventions. So, wow, what if we could just reduce the risk? And all it takes is some healthy lifestyle interventions. But, we just looked at a lab, met with a patient here in Albuquerque, and the labs of this gentleman, I've never seen triglycerides. His were 1,433. And our eyeballs are just popping out of our heads. His total cholesterol was in the 400s. I think it was 436. LDL was like 200s. I mean, it's disturbing to see what was going on. But, once again, he looked like the classic, dad body. I guess if you guys have followed some of those memes, but, the big belly, and about 50 pounds overweight. But still thought he was in good shape. But he's literally like steps away. Everyone thinks they're healthy until they have that heart attack. And so, and same with Alzheimer's. Or dementia. We think our brain's working pretty well until someone actually like shows us, like, hey, you keep repeating the same thing over and over. And so, it's really important to stay up on these things. So once again, it's not the saturated fat. They did there in the British Medical Journal, they did another meta-analysis, and they looked at the association between saturated fat consumption and all-cause mortality. And they found that there was no benefit from reduced fat, including saturated fat, on myocardial infarction, cardiovascular, or all-cause mortality. And so they said, look, what we need to do, they found that it's carbohydrates and polyunsaturated fat were associated with greater progression. So get rid of your seed oils. Don't cook with vegetable oil, canola oil, all those oils that we were using in heavily in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Now in the 2020s, we've got to just get rid of those 100%. Now, when you go to restaurants, you want to ask, and this is a question I ask, and I'll say, what kind of oils are you cooking the vegetables in or the meats in? And you can ask for a different oil. You can ask, well, can you just cook my vegetables in water? And I just want them blanched, and then you can put some butter on afterwards and some salt. But that's it's very simple. When you're cooking now, you can look in your kitchen, you have 100% control over that. And so think about what you're putting on your food. It's a big deal. So this is another, the great cholesterol myth. Stephen Sinatra, he's a medical doctor who's been very vocal about this LDL risk has been exaggerated. And there are some, I hate to say it, but there's the real benefits of you being concerned and being on so many medications on cholesterol. The real benefits go into the pharmaceutical companies' pockets. These statin drugs are billion-dollar profit makers. $1 billion. They are, unfortunately, they're preying on us as individuals of just trusting a number on a lab, but not looking at the whole science. And even when you have the pharmaceutical companies funding the medical schools, then you're not really getting this, you're getting a pretty biased approach to healthcare. And this is what I saw early on in the year 2000, 99, 2000, when I was, trying to figure out what course I wanted to take. I saw, man, there is a lot going on. There's a lot of conflicts of interest when it comes to healthcare. And not only, from profit-driven organizations, but, also with some of the training and some of the biasness that goes on in the medical profession. And so, those of you, on this, you're like me, you're always looking for knowledge outside of the conventional norms, because what we've learned is that medicine tends to be about 25 years behind the research, which is, where when we bring in regenerative medicine. If you look at some of the studies, like Dr. Horwitz out of San Francisco, he's a cardiologist who's been using different stem cell IVs to treat myocardial infarction, heart disease, and he's found he's had zero adverse reactions in treating over 20,000 patients. And we've seen the same very positive benefits that can come just by regenerating what's been damaged. Even some of that ischemic tissue has been able to heal with some of these novel therapies, but you're not going to hear about that in mainstream medicine. So what can you do? Well, you can add garlic. Garlic is really good for the heart. You can add some B3, some niacin. That may cause a little bit of flushing, but it's that it releases some nitric oxide, because that's what we need in our hearts. Even hugging somebody, that oxytocin that you get causes this nice nitric oxide flush. I even have my Zen here, and the Zen is a spray that I use to get oxytocin going in my brain. That once again, it can help that boost nitric oxide, which is really good for the heart. Hawthorn, love hawthorn. Research from 2010 suggests that hawthorn may be a safe, effective treatment for heart disease. It's got quercetin in it, which has been shown to reduce cholesterol. So if you are taking statins, make sure you're adding in coenzyme Q10 and quercetin. That will save you from, because one of the things that medications do is they will pull different minerals from your body, different vitamins, and so you'll end up depleted. Red yeast rice. Even statin drugs are made up of a fragment of the red yeast rice, which we've used in Chinese medicine for years. We call it phlegm in the liver. Is kind of what they looked at the body, and how they described it. And so we'd use red yeast rice. And so now statin drugs can obviously lower your cholesterol, but the red yeast rice has monocolin K, and that's very similar makeup of lovastatin, the prescription drug. But unfortunately, they remove all the cofactors, which can be very damaging. Asparagus. So there's 5 foods you want to eat, and this was our challenge. So asparagus, that's one of the best foods to clean your arteries, full of fiber and minerals. Beautiful thing about asparagus is it increases glutathione, which is an antioxidant that fights inflammation. And it also has alpha linoleic acid and folic acid, which prevents the hardening of arteries. And asparagus, just on a side note, is the most protein dense vegetable you can eat. There may be some that are more, but from my last search, I found asparagus actually has the most, the highest levels of protein. And there's a great cartoon, and there's I can't remember the name of it, but there's a character called Archibald Asparagus. So I just figure, like, well, my last name's Archibald, so I should probably eat a lot of asparagus. Broccoli. Broccoli is another one. That's your second food. It's loaded with vitamin K, prevents calcium from damaging the arteries. It also prevents cholesterol oxidation. Remember, it's that LDL, the oxidized LDL, that's really going in there and damaging the arteries. So why not eat a little more broccoli? And that can help with the stress that causes the tearing and plaque buildup of the arteries, because these little cruciferous gold mines here for the body, nutritional gold mines, they contain sulforaphane, and that helps with that plaque buildup. And sulforaphane has been studied in mice models and has been shown to increase longevity. It inhibits that mTOR pathway, so it just gets your body in this rebuilding mode. Fatty fish. This was food number 3. This is for the first challenge that we gave on our hacks. Eating some mackerel, some salmon, some sardines. These are great ways. Even taking some fish oil is going to be really amazing for you. So, this is the American Heart Association says eat at least twice a day. So fish. Spinach. Spinach is amazing. So spinach is filled with potassium. It's filled with folate and fiber. That all helps lower blood pressure and prevents artery blockage. You find 1 serving per day helps lower homocysteine levels, which homocysteine is something that in our blood labs, we are always looking at this. Even high homocysteine can help, or can get in the way of you having the results you want for those of you who are doing the amnio flow. Some of our Medicare patients are doing these regenerative therapies, or from the stem cell procedures in the knees or in the spine or in the shoulders. I just had my shoulder injected. Thank you, Dr. Bob. It's already feeling better. But the great thing about it is if you can lower homocysteine, you're going to get a better result overall. And so spinach is something you want to cook, especially those of you who have any kind of kidney stones or bladder stones. Cook your spinach, and people are always like, Regan, you want me to eat 1 pound or 2 pounds of vegetables per day? For those of you who've read any of my books. And I'm like, yeah, it's one of the best things you can do for your overall health. And I'll say, but the key is you got to cook it. You cook most of your vegetables and you're going to get more nutrients out of them. Yes, you'll lose about maybe 10 to 20% of your nutrients when you're cooking, but you're also removing some of those properties that get in the way of your body's ability to absorb it. So you'll actually absorb it. It's like pre-digestion when you cook your vegetables. So really great for you. And let's see if we've got, yes. Oh, good. Irene, I just started eating broccoli rice. Oh, wow. Broccoli rice. I've not tried that. I've done a lot of the cauliflower rice. I'll have to look for broccoli rice. That's awesome. Yeah. Someone mentioned, is it hard on the digest? Oh, Diane, you mentioned, is it hard on the digestive tract? Spinach is, it can be difficult to digest, but it might be hard on some people if you don't have the right pancreatic enzymes. But it needs to be cooked. The spinach needs to be cooked so that you don't get some of the buildup of kidney stones and the uric acid buildup. So that's the main reason with the spinach. Avocados, here's another food for your heart. It helps reduce the bad cholesterol and increase the good cholesterol. Clears the arteries, prevents cholesterol oxidation, lowers blood pressure. Avocados have tryptophan. It's one of my favorite fats to eat are avocados. I love them. Avocados are great. I eat one a day. In the Aztec culture, they called the avocado trees testicle trees because they thought that they were really good for men's testicular health. And maybe it was some of the fats and just reducing some of that cholesterol buildup and oxidative stress. I probably can't argue with that. I've just not seen any studies on it, but I think that's kind of interesting. Awesome. So those are the 5 foods. So that's the challenge for week 1. So pretty interesting. If you guys are new to this, new to the challenge, you're not part of our Health Accelerator community. Once again, you can get a golden ticket. It's a $500 investment for the year to get on the golden ticket. Some of you, if you are a patient of ours or in a program, then you may be able to get that. It's included in your membership at our Anodyne location. So make sure you get access to these amazing hacks. So let's talk about the next hack that we did. And this was just last night. So for those of you who were on there last night, and I know a few of you were, this will be kind of an overview, and hopefully it's, will stimulate some reinforcement of what we shared. But challenge number 2, and if you have questions, feel free to stop me. Or if you have anything, some of you are like, hey, how do I get into the Health Accelerator Challenge? And Anne is there and she can help you guys get the link and get signed up. All right, week 2, heal the heart, heal the brain. How many of you have ever found that when you get stressed, have you noticed that your heart starts beating faster? And your brain is going a million miles per hour, your heart's beating fast. I mean, if you think about a traumatic experience in your life, there's no question that our hearts and our brains are connected. And so what the challenge is of week 2, and we're going to cover this for about the next 15 minutes. The challenge is going to be, excuse me, just taking a drink of water there. The challenge is going to be, how do you connect these? How do you create better, what's called coherence, or better nerve function between the heart and the brain? Because they found that even when you just stimulate the nerve path way, the nerves are going right from the heart to the brain, and it's very interesting. So one of the biggest threats to heart health is actually going to be stress. Okay, so hey, Lucretia, she asks, I eat a lot of broccoli, but I eat it raw instead of cooked. Would it be better cooked? Lucretia, broccoli and any of the cruciferous family, you're going to get a lot more nutrients from eating the cooked broccoli versus raw, and so much easier on the digestive system. A lot of my patients get gas buildup from the raw broccoli. But yes, and it's much better for your thyroid health and everything. So yes, cook it. Just cook it in water and then put some nice butter on it, a lot of butter and some great Redmond salt or sea salt, and you'll do great. And I believe you'll actually eat more broccoli when it's cooked. I know it's super easy on the go, but I would say if you like to cook your vegetables or if you like to do any food prep, cook all your vegetables. So I'll get, like, my wife and I'll get a ton of broccoli. We'll cook it all and then we'll put it in a glass container in our fridge, and then I can pull it out. I'll even pull it out and put it in a baggie so I can just eat it throughout the day. Or if we're on a road trip, my wife is an amazing planner. I plan all the trips, the fun stuff. She plans all the food. And so as we're on a road trip, we have like bags of vegetables and we just pre-cook those. And it's great. So yes, great question there. All right, so we've talked about food. So sugar. So if you think about number one threat from a food perspective, from your heart health, which affects your brain, is sugar. The second five-letter word that starts with an S is stress. And so a little bit of stress actually can be really good for us. Right now it's not easy to, present the content. Hopefully it's engaging, but, it puts me in a mode where I've got, it gives Regan just a little bit of tension, but actually it allows me to be better. It's actually, that kind of stress is good because I am creating new neural pathways. I'm learning as you're learning. I mean, it's a really good thing. Same with exercise. My workout this morning, I put some stress on my body, but then my body counteracts that stress, and it has this, kind of opposite effect where the stress actually relaxes your body. So not all stress is bad, but it's when you have that chronic stress, that's when things can really get out of control. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So stress starts to affect your hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal axis. And we're going to talk about a very important neurohormone called catecholamines. And so if you can just get your cat purring, we'll use the catecholamines. So if you can just get your nervous system and your brain purring, that's the goal if you know how to adapt. So where you have a stressful situation, you adapt right out of it versus getting stuck in it. Because how many times can we think about an event in the past, even though it has no present day threat to us, we can still elicit the same emotion. And that's the power of the heart and the brain. And you can't get that emotion without having your heart rate change and having your blood vessels constrict and getting those catecholamines released. Because I think we think all the stress is in our brain, but actually what I'm going to share with you in some of the research that you'll find is that there's actually stress that happens in the heart at the same time as it does in the brain. And so it's the catecholamines that drive the stress response. And what they signal is responses with adrenaline, cortisol, and norepinephrine. So cortisol is more of your long-term stress response hormone. Adrenaline and norepinephrine are more of your short-term stress response. And so catecholamines, what they do when you have this stress response, you start getting an elevation in blood pressure because your blood vessels constrict. Your heart rate has to increase because it's got to push blood through those blood vessels. Your liver starts pumping out sugar. So it's called gluconeogenesis. So fancy word for the glycogen or the storage of sugar in your liver gets pushed into the blood. And then you have a decreased digestive system activity. So a lot that starts to happen there in the stress response. And that will affect your thyroid gland, starts lowering your body's overall ability to metabolize because it's fight or flight. You have two parts of your nervous system, the parasympathetic or the sympathetic. and the catecholamines trigger the sympathetic nervous response. So then your rest and digest gets turned off. It affects the adrenals, and then it affects all the sex organs. So catecholamines are a reaction to your stress. So if you can get the cat purring, then your body's going to do so much better. Because what some of the studies find is that the catecholamine, when you have an increase of catecholamines, this is where your breathing has to increase. Your body's pushing all the blood into the muscles. So, and then you also have more mental alertness. So once again, it can be very good. But the problem is you need an outlet. You need a place to metabolize these catecholamines. And some of us, we have the catecholamines. We wake up stressed in the morning. We drink coffee. The coffee it contains caffeine, and then that gets converted into dopamine. So we get this kind of feel-good pleasure neurotransmitters, but then it blocks this other neurotransmitter called adenosine, which is a natural brain sedative. And then the dopamine gets converted into adrenaline, but then the adrenaline causes this rise in blood sugar, and then the blood sugar drops, and then we want more caffeine. And so for those of you who, you say, I can't wake up without I got to have my morning coffee before anyone talks to me. I'm going to encourage you to push it back a couple hours after you wake up, because your cortisol levels are already high. So, it's a great time to get out and exercise, burn up some of those catecholamines. And then coffee can actually be a really good nootropic if you're adding some L-theanine. So L-theanine helps with that adenosine receptors so that they don't get oversaturated, so that your brain doesn't have that steep drop. And then add some fats in your coffee. This is where some MCT oils from coconut is great. I like putting a mushroom blend in my coffee, some collagen. And then I also love putting a little bit of butter and some salt, because coffee depletes magnesium and it depletes salt and potassium. So you want to keep your minerals up if you're doing it. And so it can be, coffee can be one of the healthiest things you can do for yourself, or it could be the most detrimental. So if you do coffee, do it a little later and put in those substances, and you'll do so much better on it. And then some of us, we get stuck in these chronic cycles of stress, and that's called PTSD. And so this is a big deal, because we're seeing more and more of this. And like we mentioned last night, make sure you get some professional help with PTSD. All right. So one of the things you can do for stress, one of the best things, is exercise. That's a thought. And so exercise, initially, it causes an increase of catecholamines. Remember, we want our cat purring. But just like I mentioned before, you put a little stress on your body, and then your body wants to respond to the stress. And then you get this nice boost of endorphins, and your body actually goes into this deep, relaxed state. And so when you're stressed, instead of just sitting with the stress, one of the concepts that we talked about last night is actually getting up and moving your body, so you start metabolizing these catecholamines. And so exercise is one of the most potent ways of not only calming anxiety and depression, but it's something that you can do all the time. And I made a goal of mine, several years ago. I'm going to exercise every day. And I find, of course, I don't push myself to the extreme every day. A couple times a week, I'll go really hard. But what I find is that it helps me stay a lot more calm and a lot more peaceful. And then when I go to meditate, I can really get in that deeper state when I'm exercising. So catecholamines also impact blood sugar. Remember, I talked about even if you're not eating sugar. So here's the thing that many of you will say is like, yeah, Regan, I don't know why I can't get this stubborn belly fat off. I'm following the diet to the T, and I promise I'm not cheating. And I do put surveillance cameras on all my patients to make sure you're not cheating. And you guys are. I mean, you guys living clean. But unfortunately, the weight doesn't budge. And a lot of it is due to the stress, because even eating proteins, your liver will convert that into sugar. Even your muscles in your body, if you have enough stress, your muscles, in order for cortisol to be able to continually protect you, the body will start breaking down in this catabolic fashion, breaking down the muscles in your butt and your legs. So this chronic stress can be a really a deadly thing. Something we want to watch out for. Okay, yes, and Diane, you asked, forgotten what the 20-second cold shower does for our bodies. So the cold shower, the biggest thing the cold shower does, cold shower is one of those ways of diminishing the catecholamines in your body, because the very first thing that the cold does, and this is why I've been doing my ice baths. I have a year challenge between my birthday, May 20th of 2020 to May 20th, 2021, trying to do an ice bath every day, or at least a cold shower for several minutes. But what the cold shower does is instantly you get this constriction of your blood vessels, and all the blood rushes to your organs. And then your body, the catecholamines get released, and the adrenal glands, they make you more alert. The epinephrine's there, the norepinephrine, and your body sensing a threat. And then once you get out of that cold, you have this nice flush of nitric oxide throughout your body. So it's one of the benefits is the nitric oxide, Diane, so that your heart and your blood vessels open up. So it causes this vascular pliability, which helps break up the plaque. It also helps you breathe better. It's great for fat burning because you have these cold shock proteins that get activated, and it can be one of the best things for you. So thanks for asking that. And it will also stabilize your blood sugar. So some of the minerals we talked about last night are magnesium. Eating, especially at night, consuming magnesium is one of the most powerful minerals that you can take. People who used magnesium, they saw their cortisol levels decrease by 21.6%. So that's good. Vitamin C. Not only will you sleep better with vitamin C, but you'll have more secretion. You'll have less secretion of cortisol long-term with vitamin C. And then one of the most powerful things that we've talked about on this podcast is intense, but it's also very relaxing, and that is getting your binaural beats on. So binaural beats are these beautiful beautiful sounds that you can put into your brain to actually help your brain relax. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with binaural beats or isochronic beats, maybe I could play for you just kind of this. We'll do a gamma wave. So gamma is for intense concentration and learning, and this is what it sounds like. Okay, so gamma waves in the background, you can play that, or you can do some beta, which is for problem solving and engaging. And some of these beta waves can be very, very powerful. So I'll share with you some beta waves right here. And then we got alpha waves, and alpha waves can be for relaxing and recharging. So I'll share with you some alpha waves. Kind of nice, right? And then we'll go to the theta waves. And there's theta. This is for dreaming, for autopilot states, good for learning something new. And then the final one, just as we finish up today, is I'm going to share with you some delta waves. And I'm doing this at the very end because some of you may fall asleep. Even last night, we had a few of you fall asleep. And so this one's really good. This is music for deep sleep. Yeah, you can kind of hear that. Dun, 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 dun. All right, so those are just some things. So the challenge we gave you last night was increase your vitamin C and D, take some magnesium. Listen to binaural beats, just really start to get your heart and brain connected, because the biggest challenge that we have and the biggest opportunity we have right now is found right within yourself. And so just some of these hacks, these health accelerator challenges, there's a lot of science behind them, but it also is actually easy to do. I mean, I think we can all increase the amount of sun that we have, especially if you get out in the sun in the morning. That's going to improve your vitamin D levels. And then just taking a little extra vitamin C is going to go a long ways for helping reduce your cortisol so that you're not stuck in a stress response. And the magnesium is a vasodilator. Also, magnesium is one of the precursors for serotonin, which our brains, we feel really good when we have adequate levels of serotonin. We can be the person we want to be. That's one of the neurotransmitters called the leadership neurotransmitter. So I'm going to encourage each one of you to put these hacks into your life, and really see if you can't find a new pathway and a new level of health that you did not know existed. That's my goal as a health transformer, is to share these things with you. And so, I appreciate all of you being on this today. Joan, you asked, where can I get the music and the waves? So these binaural beats and isochronic beats, if you have iTunes or even if you go on to your YouTube and you just plug in binaural beats, or Google it, you're going to find it. And it's pretty easy to find. But just binaural, BINUAR, NUA, binaural beats, you'll find it right there. And so yeah, I really appreciate you guys. Thanks so much. And Anne did mention, yes, your cold exposure does help the body adapt to stress. It boosts the vagal tone, and that vagal tone is that connection between your brain and your heart. So really appreciate you guys as a community. Next week, we'll have a brand new hack, which I'm so excited about. This 30-day heart and brain reset has been phenomenal, not only for me to dive in deeper to my research, but also to see each one of you improve in your health every day. So love you guys. And as you guys, one of the things we're doing with our golden ticket, for you guys who are golden ticket members, one of the things that Ann and I want to do is we want to continue to grow the community and serve more people. And so what we're going to do is give each one of you who do have the golden ticket, we're going to give you 2 free golden tickets to give out in the next 30 days for our next hack. Give it out to some friends or family members. So you'll see Ann will circulate that in our Signal group. And we would love to just, as our gift to you, because I know you have people you care about and you love, we want to get them in our community so they can be part of this incredible adventure that we're on together. So thanks, you guys. And I will see you next week. Same time, same place here on Your Healthy Self. Bye-bye.